Hey, good afternoon, guys. We are moving on to our fourth and final market structure. If you remember, we started out with the most competitive, where there's a whole lot of options, right? The more competitive, the closer the prices are, the kind of the better are for consumers. We narrowed it down to just a couple consumers last week with the weird word called oligopoly, and today we're talking about monopolies. And so, monopolies, as most of us already know, have to do with when there's only one producer. Now, in a global sense, these don't happen too often. Okay, and the economy is so large, we can buy stuff from so far away, so often. It doesn't really happen very often, but it happens a lot in some real small circumstances. So, for example, if you've ever been to an airport and wanted to get McDonald's there, that's monopoly power. You can't leave the airport and go somewhere else if you think that it's too expensive, if you really want to eat food. Um, if you There was a situation right when this coronavirus thing started. The guy ended up getting all the product confiscated, but he bought, I don't know, 17, 18,000 bottles of hand sanitizer, and he ended up getting it all confiscated because he was trying to create monopoly power. He knew people were going to want to buy all that stuff, and he was trying to make a big profit on it. So obviously, when producers are able to do that, when they're the only producer of certain things, it can be very disadvantageous for consumers. So the characteristics are pretty obvious. There's only one producer. The product's got to be unique. It means that I can't really substitute it. Okay. It's got to be difficult for companies to compete. So, for example, it's a copycat world where people say, "Oh, the first iPhone ever came out." And people say, "Oh, I don't want to use that," and then everybody bought it, and now we have Samsung and Android and all that stuff too. So they don't have monopoly power like they used to. Apple doesn't, and then obviously they're going to have some control over prices if it's something that people either want or really need. Okay, so some examples. As you can see, sometimes some patents and copyrights, okay, meaning that I might have monopoly power in producing my invention that I might come up with. Um, usually those aren't necessarily too prevalent. Medicines a lot of times are doing that. EpiPens, okay, another example of there's only one producer of EpiPens, and they have a patent on that, right? No, people can't copy how to distribute medicine in that way, and so in certain situations, those patents and copyrights are very disadvantageous for us. In some cases, it's not really a big deal. There's copyrights on certain book characters, for example, like Harry Potter. Like I can't write a book about Harry Potter, but I can go and write a book about something else, and you can go and buy a book about something else, which makes that industry competitive, right? Monopoly on Harry Potter, but not a monopoly on books, and so anyway, those are the things that monopolies consist of. Um, Over time, they've kind of been called a couple different things. We mentioned last week we had a guy, the president, named the Trust Buster, and he broke up monopolies. And the reason you learn about him in the progressive era is because that was a whole completely new way of this capitalist America deciding to do things. Okay, and so anyway, um, this idea of capitalism where the government stays out of people's business was really good until we found the way to break some rules. And so, um, it's evolved over time. Sometimes it's referred to as antitrust legislation, and we've been told we have to do certain things. On top of that, too, we also have a few monopolies that the government really can't do anything about. So one of those being a resource monopoly. If you're in a small town and there's only one gas station, that's a resource monopoly. I'm the only producer of that. Okay, I don't have tons of control over being able to raise the prices too much because people can still drive, a short distance to get cheaper gas. But that would be an example of a resource monopoly. The government creates patents and copyrights. Okay, they want to promote creativity. They want to promote innovation. They want our lives to become easier, and so they award us these patents and copyrights as monetary value, right? So we try to invent stuff and we try to make life better. Um, Public franchises are things for like schools. If you've ever paid attention, you can only buy Pepsi products inside Concord High School. And so that's an example of a monopoly. Not a huge deal, doesn't affect our life too much, but that is an example. The last one, and I put a star next to it, is when the government says there has to be a monopoly. And so these are situations, if you look at the examples on there, gas, water, electric, not gasoline, gas as in like natural gas, for like heating your home, right? And again, these are put in place because the government says, hey, listen, this is going to be better than having competitors. We don't need to be plugging in new electricity, taking electricity out, having multiple power lines, do all this stuff. Okay, that's not an efficient way to do things. Okay, so anyway, that's a natural monopoly, kind of a tricky word, but it is an example of a monopoly. All right, so some things that are bad for us. Obviously, they can set prices wherever they want, as long as we have the income to buy it. We have to do it. We'll do it. But maybe a little bit more importantly for us is businesses don't have a reason to do a good job, okay, or innovate. And so, in the sense of cell phones, if you guys have ever seen the original cell phone and or the original iPhone, sorry. If you remember before iPhones came out and smartphones started, everybody was trying to make smaller cell phones. Like I had a flip phone, right? And they were really small and really light. And then iPhone comes out with this iPhone and it is probably about that thick and about that big. I don't know if that gives you a very good scale, but it also weighed about 4 pounds. Okay. It was super heavy. People said, no one wants to carry that stupid thing around. Maybe you guys have seen like some, iPods, okay, and where the original iPod was about like this, and it had that little white little circle thing on it, right? And you had to scroll up, and it just had a digital screen, it looked like a graphing calculator, and it was huge, and it was heavy, and it was so awesome because it held like 200 songs, okay. And so anyway, obviously as time went on with the cell phone, competition has improved, and think about what the cell phone can do today compared to what it could do 12 years ago, 13, 14 years ago, whenever that was. And so anyway, the competition drives innovation as well. We like to have that. And at the end of the day too, we also like to have choices and competitive pricing. That's all I got for you guys today. We'll finish up this chapter on Monday. There is an assignment. It's going to take you a little bit longer today. It's a little bit more in detail where you are picking your a business, and then you are also going to pick what market structure it falls into. Okay, I pulled up your assignment here, and so what you're going to do is, all right, and you can read the instructions here, is you're going to pick a business, okay, an industry, all right, either or you're going to fall into the same thing eventually. And so I would do something that you're familiar with, okay. So for example, if you are an athletic person, you might want to do athletic shoes, and you're going to pick a company and you're going to analyze how much competition that company faces as you go through the questions down here. Okay. And so you want to explain your answers. All right. I would say also, if you're somebody, when you can do whatever you want, if you're familiar with the cosmetic industry, do some makeup stuff. Okay. So whatever you want to do, I'm not picky, but you're going to pick a business. And obviously as you read through the questions, okay, it's going to ask you some different things. Now notice over here at the end of the questions, it talks about the characteristics that we talk about within our notes. So for example, right, our 4 characteristics: number of producers, similar products, barriers to entry, control over prices. You can see that those are in bold at the end of the questions. Now, as you go through it, okay, you're going to get to the end, and it's going to ask you, what market structure does your business fall into? There's 4 market structures: perfect competition, monopolistic competition, oligopoly, monopoly. Okay, so you'll have to have gone over and checked those notes for each of those to be able to answer this correctly. If you get part 2 incorrect, if I read through your answers and part 2 is incorrect, I'm going to send it back. I'm going to say redo it. You're not going to get credit. Okay, so it is important. This is one of those assignments that obviously you have to do a little bit more than just share your opinion. but you can do it. You just got to jump through the hoops. Okay. I look forward to hearing from you. All right. I've had a good time checking out you guys' good things that you've been doing. I haven't gotten everybody's yet, obviously. It's still in the middle of the day on Thursday. But try to get those to me as soon as possible, and we will stay in touch. All right.